Close your eyes for me, just for a moment. It's a Wednesday night in 1976. The curtains are drawn against the dark. You can hear the gas fire hissing in the corner of the living room, that soft blue flame your dad lit 20 minutes ago when he came in from work. Your mum's just brought through a tray of tea and a plate of digestives, and in the corner, sat on its own little wooden cabinet, is the telly. You remember the telly, don't you? That proper telly. The wooden box that weighed half a ton. The one with two dials on the front, one for the channel and one for the volume, both of them turned brown from years of fingerprints. You had 3 channels. 3. BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. And the bloody ITV signal, depending on where you lived, was always a bit fuzzy, wasn't it? You'd press the button on the front and nothing. Not yet. The telly took its sweet time. See, half a minute, easy. You could hear the high whine of the valves warming up. Then a tiny white dot would appear in the middle of the screen. Then, slowly, magically, the dot would grow into a full picture, and the smell of warm dust burning on the back of the set would fill the room. That was the moment. That was when the night started. Kids today, well, they've got Netflix. They've got 1,000 channels. They can watch anything, anytime, on a screen the size of a postage stamp, held in the palm of their hand. And somehow, with all of that, they've got nothing to talk about in the playground on Monday morning. But us, well, we had something different, didn't we? We had appointment telly. We had shows that the whole country watched at the same time. If you missed The Good Life on a Sunday night, you couldn't catch up. It was gone, vanished. Until the repeat, maybe 6 months down the line. So everyone watched. 20 million of us, sometimes 25 million, sat in front of the same picture at the same time, laughing at the same jokes. And the shows themselves, well, half of them have completely vanished now, wiped from the tapes by accountants at the BBC who needed the videotape back, banned by squeamish executives in the 90s who decided they didn't fit modern tastes, forgotten by streaming services who can't be bothered to license them. Some of them have just slipped through the cracks of history, gone without a trace. So today, on Britain Retold, we're going to bring 15 of them back. 15 British TV shows from the 1970s that, for one reason or another, have vanished forever. Shows that brought your family together. Shows you watched with your nan on her settee. Shows that made you laugh until your dad told you to keep the noise down because he was trying to read the Echo. Stay with me, you'll remember more than you think. Right, let's start where the day used to end for most of us. 3:15, school bell goes. You run home through the back streets, satchel banging against your knees, and you've got one thing on your mind. Get home, get the telly on, get your tea on a tray, and don't move until your mum threatens to send you to bed without afters. First up, the show that just about every kid in Britain watched at 4:30 on a weekday. Mr Benn. Made by Zephyr Films in 1971, only 14 episodes were ever produced. 14. That's the lot. And yet the BBC repeated them so often on such heavy rotation through the 70s that whole generations grew up thinking there were hundreds. Mr Benn, the bowler-hatted man from number 52 Festive Road, who walked into a fancy dress shop and came out as a knight, an astronaut, a caveman. The shopkeeper would appear as if by magic, and any kid raised in the 70s can still say those 4 words in the exact right voice. The original films sit in a vault somewhere now, occasionally licensed for nostalgia repeats. The world they came from is gone. Then there was Bagpuss, made by Oliver Postgate and Peter Firmin in 1974. And here's the truly extraordinary fact, the one that breaks my heart a little. They only made 13 episodes. 13. That's it. The pink and white cloth cat, his shop full of broken treasures, Madeline the rag doll, Professor Yaffle, the bookend woodpecker, and the mice who mended things and sang songs in their high little voices. 13 episodes that the BBC played on a loop for the next 15 years. A 1,999 poll voted Bagpuss the most popular children's TV programme of all time. And still, only 13 episodes. They don't make telly like that anymore. They can't. The accountants wouldn't allow it. The Magic Roundabout. Now this one was different. Originally a French series called Le Manège Enchanté, but the genius was Eric Thompson, who took the silent French animation and rewrote the English narration entirely from scratch. Brian the Snail, Dougal the Dog, Florence, Dylan the Rabbit, Ermintrude the Cow. The whole nation watched it at 5 to 6 in that little slot just before the news. Adults reckon, even now, that the show was secretly about drugs. Eric Thompson always denied it. He died in 1982. The show was rebooted in the 2000s. Wasn't the same. Couldn't be. And Magpie. Now Magpie was ITV's answer to Blue Peter, broadcast from 1968 to 1980. Bit edgier, bit cooler. The presenters wore flared trousers and tie-dye t-shirts and looked like they'd just come from a Hyde Park concert. Mick Robertson, Susan Stranks, Tony Bastable. The opening tune, sung by the Spencer Davis Group, is still one of the catchiest theme tunes ever written for children's telly. Magpie ended in June 1980. Most of the episodes were wiped by ITV in cost-cutting purges of the 80s. Hardly any survive intact. A whole show, a whole 12 years of British childhood, just gone. These were the shows that got us through tea. The shows that played in the background while Mum dished up sausages and mash. The shows we never knew were precious until they weren't there anymore. But by 6 o'clock, the children's hour was over. The news came on. The grown-ups took over the telly. And we had to wait, all the way until Saturday morning, for the proper madness to begin. Saturday morning. 1978. You're 8 years old. You've been awake since 6:30, lying in bed listening to the milk float clinking up the street. Your mum's downstairs, banging about with the kettle. Your dad's still snoring. And at 9 o'clock, exactly 9 o'clock, the telly comes on, and chaos arrives in your living room. Because Saturday morning in 1970s Britain wasn't quiet. Saturday morning was a battlefield. 2 channels, 2 shows, and every kid in Britain had to pick a side. On BBC One, you had Multicoloured Swap Shop, launched in October 1976, presented by Noel Edmonds, with John Craven doing the news bits and Maggie Philbin and Keith Chegwin running about the country in a van. The whole concept was, well, genius. Kids would ring in to a phone number 018118055, a number burned into the brain of every child in Britain, and they'd swap things. A Raleigh chopper for a guitar, a box of Lego for a hamster cage. Live, on air, on a Saturday morning, with Noel sitting behind a desk in a tank top trying to keep order. It ran for 3 hours. 3 hours. Live telly with kids ringing in, pop stars dropping by, competitions, cartoons, posh paws, the stuffed dinosaur sitting on the desk. The show finished in 1982 and was replaced by Saturday Superstore. The original Swap Shop episodes, most of them were never properly archived. The BBC kept a few, the rest are gone. But over on ITV, things were different. ITV had Tiswas. Today is Saturday, Watch and Smile. Broadcast out of ATV in Birmingham from 1974, originally just a regional show, but by 1979 it had gone national. And it was, well, it was anarchy. Pure, glorious anarchy. Chris Tarrant was the ringleader. Sally James, Lenny Henry getting his first big break, Bob Carolgees and his dog Spit, custard pies, buckets of water tipped over the heads of celebrities, the Phantom Flanflinger, a masked figure who'd run on set and slap a cream pie in someone's face, the cage, where parents who'd written in would be locked up and pelted with water from above. There was nothing else like it on telly. Nothing. Mums hated it, properly hated it. They reckoned it was teaching the kids to be hooligans. Dads secretly loved it. And if your house had 2 tellies, and very few did in 1978, there'd be a row every Saturday morning over which channel went on the big one in the living room. Tiswas ended in 1982. The original masters of most episodes were wiped, the same way Magpie was wiped, because videotape was expensive and shelf space at ATV was tight. What survives today is mostly home recordings from people who pointed a VHS at the screen. A whole era of British childhood preserved by accident. And of course, we can't talk about Saturday telly without mentioning Crackerjack. Crackerjack started in 1955 on BBC, broadcast at 5 to 5 on a Friday, not Saturday technically, but it belonged to the same weekend madness. By the 70s, it was hosted by Michael Aspel, then Ed Stewart, then Stu Francis. The catchphrase, "Every kid in Britain knew." The presenter would shout, "It's Friday, it's 5 to 5." And the studio audience would scream back, "It's Crackerjack." Cabbages for prizes, pencils as consolation, knockabout sketches that made no sense whatsoever. The show finally ended in 1984, tried to come back in 2020. Nobody really noticed. That was Saturday morning. 3 hours of pure, unfiltered chaos beamed straight into the living rooms of Britain. And by 12 o'clock, when the wrestling started on World of Sport, the kids were exhausted, the mums were furious, and the dads were already dozing in their armchairs. But Saturday wasn't over yet. Oh no, Saturday night. Well, Saturday night was when the real telly happened. Now, Saturday night. 1977, Christmas Day, even better. The presents have been opened, the turkey's been carved. Your nan's asleep in the good chair with a sherry glass still in her hand. And at 8:15, the whole nation, and I mean the whole nation, sat down in front of the telly. 28 million people. 28. That's the official figure. 28 million people in Britain watched the Morecambe and Wise Christmas special on the 25th of December, 1977. Half the country. Half the entire country sat in the same room watching the same two men, laughing at the same jokes. It's a figure that will never be touched again. Not by Strictly, not by the Cup final, not by anything, because that kind of shared national moment, well, it just doesn't exist anymore. Eric Morecambe and Ernie Wise, two men from up north who'd been doing the same act for 30 years on the variety circuit before the BBC finally gave them their own show in 1968. And what they did, week after week, with guests like Glenda Jackson and Andre Previn and Shirley Bassey, well, it was a kind of magic that telly can't manufacture anymore. The breakfast routine to the stripper. The Christmas play what Ernie wrote. The flat cap and the glasses, the slap on Ern's cheeks. Eric died in 1984. The shows live on as repeats every Christmas. But the country that watched them is long gone. Then there was The Generation Game, hosted by Bruce Forsyth from 1971. Couples competing in front of a studio audience, trying to ice a cake or throw a pot on a wheel or perform a bit of ballet. The conveyor belt at the end, where the winners had to remember the prizes. Cuddly toy, everyone shouted it. Bruce is nice to see you, nice. The whole country joined in. 20 million viewers, week in, week out, between 1971 and 1977. Bruce went on to other things. The format was revived a few times. None of them came close. They couldn't. Now, this next one is the one that nobody wants to mention anymore. The Black and White Minstrel Show, broadcast on BBC One from 1958 to 1978. White performers in blackface makeup, singing traditional songs from the American South. It pulled in 18 million viewers at its peak. It won the Golden Rose of Montreux in 1961, and then, slowly, painfully, the country woke up. The BBC dropped it in July 1978. The original tapes mostly survive, but the show is, quite rightly, never repeated. We talk about it now not to celebrate it, but to remember that it happened. That a show like that ran on primetime British television for 20 years, and most of us, watching from our settees, didn't think to question it. History is uncomfortable like that, sometimes. And on the lighter side, there was Sale of the Century. Broadcast from Anglia Television in Norwich from 1971, hosted by Nicholas Parsons, quiz show. Contestants answered questions to win money, then bought prizes from a catalogue at knockdown prices. A washing machine for 15 quid. A holiday to Marbella for 30. The catchphrase, sung by an announcer over a glittering set, was and now, from Norwich, it's the quiz of the week. 18 million viewers at its peak, ran until 1983. The Norwich studios are flats now. The set was scrapped. The original master tapes, again, mostly wiped. These were the shows that made Saturday night, the shows your dad shouted answers at, the shows your nan dozed through, the shows that, for 1 hour, made a divided country feel like one big family. And on the weeknights, when the kids were in bed and the telly belonged to the grown-ups, well, that was where the proper British humour lived. Tuesday night, 1976. The kids are upstairs. Your dad's in his armchair with the Evening Standard folded on his lap. Your mum's just put the kettle on for the second time. The curtains are drawn. And at 8:30, the ITV sitcom comes on. And the whole road, the whole street, the whole bloody country settles in to laugh together. Rising Damp. Yorkshire Television, 1974 to 1978. 28 episodes, that's all. 28. Set in a grimy bedsit in some unnamed northern town, run by Rupert Rigsby, the meanest, most pathetic, most magnificent landlord in British comedy history. Played by Leonard Rossiter in what many reckon, even now, is the greatest comic performance ever committed to British television. Don Warrington as Philip, Richard Beckinsale as Alan, Frances de la Tour as Miss Jones. The four of them, trapped together in that peeling wallpaper, that bare light bulb, that constant smell of damp carpet. The writer was Eric Chappell. Just one writer, all 28 episodes. Imagine that today. One man, sitting at a typewriter in Lincolnshire, writing the funniest sitcom on British telly. Richard Beckinsale died in March 1979, just 31 years old, of a heart attack. The show was never the same after. The full series is still available on DVD. But the world it captured, the bedsit, the gas meter, the landlord knocking on the door for the rent on a Friday night, that world is dust. Are you being served? BBC One, 1972 to 1985. Set in the menswear and ladieswear departments of Grace Brothers. A fictional London department store. Mr. Humphreys, Mrs. Slocum, Captain Peacock, Miss Brahms, Mr. Lucas. Innuendo-laden, broadly drawn, ridiculous and beloved. At its peak in the mid-70s, it pulled in 22 million viewers. The writers, Jeremy Lloyd and David Croft, were churning out gags about Mrs. Slocum's pussy 3 years before Monty Python had finished arguing about parrots. The show ran on American PBS for decades after Britain forgot about it. Still has a strange cult following in Texas, of all places. George and Mildred. Thames Television, 1976 to 1979. A spin-off of Man About the House, starring Brian Murphy and Eutha Joyce as a feuding suburban couple. The wife forever climbing the social ladder, the husband forever sliding back down it. Eutha Joyce died in August 1980, aged just 53. The producers were planning a 5th series. It never happened. The original tapes survive. The chemistry between the two leads you can't recreate. They simply don't make couples like that anymore. And finally, the one that everyone remembers but nobody dares show on telly today. Mind Your Language. London Weekend Television, 1977 to 1979. Set in an evening English language class in central London with students from around the world, French, German, Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Pakistani, Italian, Spanish, all played for broad national stereotype. The comedy hasn't aged well, to put it mildly. At its peak, it pulled in 18 million viewers. ITV cancelled it in 1979 after pressure from groups who said it was racist. The show, like the minstrel show before it, sits in the archives, a reminder of how British comedy once was, and a measure of just how far we've come, or how far we still have to go, depending on who you ask. These were the weeknight sitcoms, the shows that made tired men laugh after a 10-hour shift, the shows that made tired mums put down the ironing for half an hour, the shows that, in their small way, made the long British winter feel a little bit warmer. But of the 15 shows we've remembered today, almost none of them would get commissioned now. So why did they disappear? Why are they gone? That's the question we need to answer before we finish. So, 15 shows, 15 programs that defined the British living room for a decade, and almost every single one of them gone in one way or another. Why? Well, the honest answer is, it wasn't one thing. It was three. The first thing was tape. Plain old videotape. In the 1970s, 2-inch videotape cost the BBC and ITV a small fortune, about £100 a reel, which in today's money is closer to 1,000. So once a show had aired, and aired its repeat, the tape was simply wiped, reused, bunged back into the machine to record next week's Top of the Pops. Whole episodes of Doctor Who, gone. Entire series of Tiswas, gone. Most of Magpie, gone. The BBC, in the late 70s alone, wiped over 200,000 hours of broadcast material. Not because they didn't care, because tape was money and storage space was tight. It was, you might say, an accidental act of cultural vandalism on an industrial scale. The second thing was changing tastes. The shows of the 70s were made for a Britain that, in many ways, no longer exists. A Britain where 18 million people would happily watch a quiz show from Norwich on a Saturday night. A Britain where a sitcom about a leaking bedsit could run for 4 series. A Britain where, frankly, some of the jokes we laughed at then make us cringe now. The black and white minstrel show, mind your language. Even bits of Are You Being Served? The world moved on, the shows didn't, and the broadcasters, quite rightly in some cases, decided not to repeat them. The third thing was just us. The viewers. We changed. We got VHS recorders in 1981, and suddenly we didn't have to watch live anymore. We got Channel 4 in 1982. We got satellite in 1989. By the 90s we had 100 channels, then 1,000, then YouTube and Netflix and iPlayer. And the great, shared, national appointment with the telly, the thing that made Saturday night feel like Saturday night, well, it just dissolved. There's no 28 million viewer show anymore. There can't be. We're all watching different things, on different devices, at different times. We didn't lose 15 TV shows. Not really. We lost the world they belonged to. The world where a whole family sat in one room with one telly. The world where you talked about last night's program with your mates at the bus stop on the way to school. The world where, for 1 hour on a Saturday night, the country breathed in and out together. Those things are harder to bring back than a TV show. But the memory of them, you see, well, the memory of them is something none of the streaming services can sell us. So before you go, I want to ask you something, and I really do want to know. What was your show? The one you remember best from when you were small? Was it Mr Benn after school on a Monday? Was it Tiswas on a Saturday morning, with your dad shouting at you to turn the racket down? Was it Morecambe and Wise on Christmas Day, with your nan asleep in the good chair? Who did you watch it with? Where were you sitting? Tell us in the comments. Tell us the show. Tell us the room. Tell us who was there. Let's keep these memories alive while we still can. And if this little walk down memory lane meant something to you, well, you know what to do. Subscribe to Britain Retold. There are more stories like this one, waiting to be remembered. Until next time, take care of yourselves.